How's it going, folks? This is Mike, also known as Gray, followed by a number, and it's up to you to guess which number. It shouldn't be too difficult. Anyway, I'd like to show you what I got in this package from creepyclassics.com yesterday morning, Saturday. And if you don't know about creepyclassics.com, you really should, because it's a great place to buy DVDs, Blu-rays, posters, lobby cards, and all kinds of memorabilia, magazines, books. Just a terrific place. So check it out, creepyclassics.com. They also have great customer service, which I will allude to later on. So I bought a couple of horror films on Blu-ray, and I like to show them to you. Now, these happen to be upgrades. I already have these on DVD, and I decided to buy the Blu-ray. This is something I swore I was not going to start doing, right? Upgrading my DVDs to Blu-ray, spending money I don't need to spend. But every once in a while, something comes along that I just can't say no to. So let's see how much restraint I have to keep this going. But never say never, right? Anyway, so the two films I bought, one of them is The Crimson Cult, also known as The Curse of the Crimson Altar, which is its original title. This is an English horror film from 1967, released in this country in 1968. And it stars Boris Karloff, Christopher Lee, and Barbara Steele. And of course, Barbara Steele is the reason I bought it. Now, the other film that I bought is another Barbara Steele classic. This is The Long Hair of Death. This is an Italian film from 1964. Has a nice little slipcase. And there are two kinds of artwork on the Blu-ray. So anyway, let me tell you a little bit about these movies and why I bought them. Now, my primary reason for buying this is because it has some extra features that I thought were worth the money. And one of them is an audio commentary with Barbara and a film historian named I'm having trouble with my lips today, David Del Val, who happens to be a very close friend of Barbara Steele's. They've known each other for a long time, and he used to be her agent back in the 70s and 80s, I believe. So it's worth the money just to hear them talking and to hear Barbara reminisce about what it was like to get to know Christopher Lee and Boris Karloff and other things about her career. Now, this is a beautifully made color film by a studio named Tygon, which was kind of, at the time in the 60s, it was trying to be a rival to Hammer Films, which was the #1 studio for making horror and fantasy type films. And this was one of their biggest budget films, and they had 3 very famous 60s horror stars in it. Unfortunately, it's just not a very good movie. It has some good things in it and a lot of possibilities, considering that it's based on an H.P. Lovecraft story called Dreams in the Witch House. And I haven't read that story, but I have a feeling they probably took out almost any reference to Lovecraft when they got the script together, because nothing really happens. And it's about an ancient witch in this English village coming back to haunt people through dreams. And is she really alive, or are people just hallucinating? It's kind of explained, but not really. The worst thing about it is the fact that although Christopher Lee and Boris Karloff have several scenes together, and it's just great fun as a horror fan to watch these two wonderful actors working together, which they have done before, Barbara Steele has no scenes with either one of these actors, and that's the biggest disappointment in the whole thing. She plays the ancient witch, and she appears in these dream sequences, and she's got this amazing green makeup and this huge headdress with feathers and a rather sexy costume, but she doesn't really have all that much to do. So in that sense, it is a big disappointment. I would recommend this film mainly as a curiosity item for people who like Karloff, Lee, and Steele, or any of the above, and just to see, kind of form your own opinion. A lot of people really like this movie, but it's still worth getting. There's another great extra feature on this. It's a conversation with Christopher Lee, where he sits down and talks about his career. And I started to watch it yesterday, and I didn't have time to finish it. I had to go out and do something else. It's kind of a long documentary, and it's definitely worth spending time to watch it. So that is The Crimson Cult, a.k.a. The Curse of the Crimson Altar. All right, now the other film. Oh, by the way, this is put out by Kino Lorber, And they usually put out extremely good work, and they did a good job on this Blu-ray. So I forgive them for the terrible job they did with the Blu-ray of Black Sunday. You are forgiven, okay? Now, The Long Hair of Death is put out by an outfit called Raro. That's R-A-R-O Video. And like I said, this was made in 1964. And it's directed by a man named Antonio Margheriti, who goes by the English pseudonym on almost all of his films. The pseudonym is Anthony Dawson, but his real name is Antonio Margheriti. And anyway, he had worked with Barbara Steele a year before in another really classic, beautifully made Gothic horror film called Castle of Blood. The Italian title for that film is Danza Macabra. And then he made this film with her the following year. This is kind of an underrated Gothic horror film. It's not, well, okay, now there's a good extra feature on this. There's an introduction to the film made by a guy named Chris Alexander, who happens to be the editor of Fangoria magazine. And he apparently is a big fan of Barbara Steele because he gives her all kinds of lavish praise in his introduction. And he says that this is one of his favorite films from the Italian Gothic horror film period in the 60s. And he calls it one of the least loved films that she made, and he thinks that's very undeserved. And I have to agree. He also said that, excuse me, this is every bit as much of an art film as it is a horror film, which is also true of films like Black Sunday. And it's definitely worth seeing. The Blu-ray transfer is absolutely perfect. I mean, it really is beautiful. So from that standpoint, I was definitely pleased. There are two audio tracks on this. One is the original Italian dialogue with English subtitles, and the other is the English dub. Now, when you watch Barbara Steele speaking her lines, even though her voice is not used, you can tell that she's speaking Italian all through the film. So she was fluent in Italian, and it's a shame they didn't use her actual voice. But this film is, like I said, it's another Gothic horror film, filmed in a beautiful castle outside of Rome, and it's kind of, in a way, it starts out with kind of a standard plot line, very similar to Black Sunday, which is a woman is being accused of witchcraft, and she's going to be burned at the stake. And then it sets into motion, and by the way, Barbara is not the woman who's being burned, it's her mother. So she's trying to, before it happens, she's trying to stop it from happening. And the film begins with a lot of drama and a lot of action. And then it kind of moves into a very, well, it is kind of slow. It's kind of a more measured pace of a period where you get a lot of character development and a lot of points of the story. And then at the end, it picks up considerably and it gets very intense and has a very, very intense ending. So I would recommend this to people who like what DVD Collector 1974 likes to call slow burn horror films, because this is something that will carry you on for a long time with incredible atmosphere and cinematography, and then will pay off in the end, pay off, you know, astronomically in the end. So I just can't recommend this enough. Extra features on this: there's no audio commentary, but there is an interview with Antonio Margheriti's son, who worked with his father quite a bit, and he talks about his father making this film and his feelings about Barbara Steele, and also what he did for the rest of his career. He's a very prolific filmmaker, and Barbara is matched by a terrific co-star in this, an actor named George Artisan, who also was sometimes billed as Giorgio Artisan, and he is a man who made dozens and dozens of films in Italy during the 1960s, and a very good-looking guy. For once, Barbara Steele, who is very physical and very sexual, is matched by a leading man who has as much physicality and sexuality as she had. And it's good to see the chemistry between them. There was also a young woman who has a very big part in the film named Halina Zaluska, an actress who's very intense, very beautiful. And she plays Barbara Steele's younger sister. And I've never seen her in anything else, but I have a feeling she was probably a very prolific actor as well. Actress as well. She's very talented. It's got a couple of trailers. It's got the original Italian trailer and the one for America. And then it also has another interview with another film historian who talks about this film and more about Margheriti and that whole period of Italian filmmaking. So I just highly recommend this to anybody who is interested in Italian horror films, gothic horror films, or definitely My Lady Barbara Steele. Okay, it's a very beautiful and a very worthwhile film to watch. All right, now what I was going to say about creepyclassics.com. I ordered this package back on July 4th, and Creepy Classics is very, very quick about getting their stuff in the mail. So when I didn't get it for a week, 2 weeks, I finally emailed them to see what was wrong, because I had a feeling there might have been a problem with mail delivery in my area. We've been having people on my street have been getting each other's mail, and we've been trading back and forth. I think we had some kind of a new mail carrier, and she was making mistakes. So hopefully that's solved. But anyway, I didn't get the films in the mail. So I emailed them, and I was assured by Ron Adams, who runs Creepy Classics, that he had sent this out immediately after they got my order. I ordered it online. So he, without my even asking, he sent out the 2 films again at no charge to me and apologized for any trouble, and which they did not have to do. That was a very, very generous and very customer service positive thing to do, and I just thank them so much. And I would like to recommend to all of you that if you're not familiar with Creepy Classics, that you check out their website and see what they have to offer, and I guarantee you that you'll be pleased by the way they treat you as a customer. Okay, so that's my video. Anybody who knows anything about these films or has any questions, please ask. So thank you.